There's a lot of commotion going on Twitter right now about potential leaks for Game of Thrones for the next 2 episodes. Now, a lot of the people talking about it, and there are some articles written as well, they're claiming that the leaks have information from episode 4 and from episode 5 and 6, but they were released well before episode 4 aired. And so because some of this information is true, they're then presuming that the other information from episode 5 and 6 are true. And there's a lot of people upset. Not so much upset that it's leaked, but they seem to not like what it says. So they don't like what the actual end of Game of Thrones will be if these leaks are actually true. So again, there are many people claiming that this was all leaked out well before episode 4 aired. And there are details that are correct for episode 4, which leads a lot of people to think that the other details are actually true. So I went online and had a look to see what I could find out and see if it does in fact have details from episode 4 that are true. Now, again, I didn't see this before episode 4, so I can't say for a fact that this was in fact leaked before episode 4, but it looks like it probably was. So to start here, I'm just going to read through the episode 4 leaks that, again, were seemingly before episode 4 aired. If you haven't seen episode 4, you probably don't want to get it spoiled, but I'm just going to talk about the episode 4 details for the moment. So the first thing we have here is it says Euron's fleet takes down Rhaegar. So that happened. The dragon got shot down by Euron, and Euron's fleet was shooting at it. It says Jaime betrays the North and Missandei is captured. Missandei was captured. Jaime leaves the North. I don't know if you could say he betrayed the North, but he does say he's going back to Cersei, so perhaps that's considered a betrayal. The next one is probably from next episode. Sansa tells Tyrion about Jon's lineage. Tyrion tells Varys. That happened in episode 4. Varys betrays Dany because he thinks Jon would be a better ruler. That pretty much happened in episode 4. The betrayal didn't, but he's talking like maybe they need to assassinate Dany. So that may be a little bit of spoilers for episode 5 or 6, but that basically happened in episode 4. Cersei has Missandei executed. Yep, that happened. The mountain chopped her head off and her body fell off the top of the walls. The next one hasn't happened yet. That one hasn't happened yet. Okay, so all of the ones after that point, they're in the future. So those details there, they were all accurate. So those are things that actually happened. And so there are more details here that, to me, they all sound reasonable, and I actually wouldn't have a problem with any of these things happening, except for the last one. The last one, which I think is fake. I have to think it's fake, but if this is real, I would agree with what all of the people seem to be saying, that this is a terrible ending to Game of Thrones. But as far as the rest of them are concerned, they all seem very realistic to me. They seem like something that could happen. There's a lot of betrayal going on, a lot of death going on. That's exactly what I expect to actually happen. So hopefully that's not what people are complaining about. It probably is. But the last one here, this is the one I'll read next. I've laughed a few times by reading it. Not reading it aloud. I'm laughing a little bit now. I think this is fake. It's so bad it has to be fake. It says that the council gets formed to decide who the king should be. Tyrion gives a speech and everyone votes, and Bran becomes the king. Bran becomes the king, the end. Now, I just don't see that can happen. Bran has disassociated himself of doing anything. He's not really Bran anymore. I can't imagine that Bran is voted in as the king of the Seven Kingdoms. That just seems like complete nonsense, but I can understand why people would be quite upset if this is happening. And this has been inserted into these other things which seemingly were leaked before episode 4. So this gives it, a bit of this could be true because it's got things in here that were leaked beforehand. Now again, I don't know if they were really leaked beforehand. It looks like it was. But the whole Bran is going to be running the Seven Kingdoms. I don't know if I can think of a worse ending. So that is just such a bad idea, having Bran somehow become the king of the Seven Kingdoms. I don't understand. Now, obviously, he's got some vision stuff, and maybe he's wise, and he'll rule very well. Maybe there is a bit of method to the madness, but that doesn't seem very satisfactory to have Bran become the actual ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. So I'm going to go through some of these other ones here. These all seem very reasonable to me, and I don't think I'd have a problem with any of these things actually happening. They could all still be false, but be warned, these may be true. This may spoil the rest of Game of Thrones if you're interested in not being spoiled. So the first one here that was written in the section that had the episode 4 spoilers that were all true says Jamie betrays the North Messenger, is captured, and then we have Dany's army captures Jamie. Brienne tries to talk to him, but he refuses. Now, that makes some sense to me because he's riding south and he's trying to get to King's Landing, but there's going to be an army besieging King's Landing in the way, so that makes some sense to me that he would be stopped and he'd be captured, and they'd obviously think he's fighting for the other side, so that one sounds reasonable to me. Dany has Varys executed. Dany assaults King's Landing, and it's one-sided as hell. That's what it literally says here. So Varys is talking like, he's on Jon's side and on Dany's side. It sounds reasonable to me that Dany would have Varys be executed. And it also begins what some of these outline as Dany's sort of taking a bit of a turn. Now, so if people are going to turn against Dany, she's not really done anything you could call evil or bad up to this point. Now, they might not like her because she's an outsider, but if she kills Varys, that might not be seen as a sort of good thing. Tyrion begs her to show mercy, but she refuses. Presumably that was for Varys. Tyrion frees Jaime to try to get Cersei out of the city. King's Landing gets wrecked in the battle. Drogon burns Euron's fleet. The Hound fights his brother, and they both die mortally wounded. Now, we know the Hound is probably going to fight his brother, and I guess them both killing each other, maybe that's a sensible ending to it. Jaime makes it to Cersei, and they die together. In the other spoilers yet, talked a bit more about how Jaime actually fights Euron, and Jaime kills Euron, but he gets mortally wounded in the battle, and this then says Jaime makes it to Cersei, and they die together. Dany is executing everyone in King's Landing. Jon and Tyrion are upset. Now, maybe it means the dragon's burning everybody in the fight, but that also would explain why people might turn on Dany. Dany has Tyrion arrested to be executed for freeing Jaime. That makes complete sense if he does actually free Jaime, if Jaime's captured. Tyrion tries to convince Jon that his family will never be safe because his lineage makes him a threat to Dany's rule. Jon tries to talk to Dany, but she justifies her actions. So far, for me, I think all of this is reasonable. I don't have a problem with it, and it also sort of highlights why Jon might turn on Dany, because it looks like she's doing some evil actions that she's trying to justify. Jon pledges himself to Dany, but then stabs her and surrenders himself. The other leaks I read said he stabs her in the back. And then this is where this one then goes on to say councillors formed and Bran is hired up to to be the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms. Now, the other leaks that are very similar I read said that Sansa and Tyrion try to turn Jon against Dany, and then it says that Sansa betrays Tyrion and Tyrion is executed by Dany, or Tyrion is killed, and then Jon turns on Dany and stabs her in the back, and it says that Jon's outcome is uncertain. He may be back at the Night's Watch, or he may die. This other one also talks about how Tyrion's execution was filmed in the studio so that no one would know what happens. So I guess this person's trying to pretend they're actually on the studio stuff, if that's actually true. So I can understand people are upset that they might have found out some information early, but for me, I wouldn't say that if I was writing the end of the season, this is how I'd have it happen. But this is exactly the kind of thing I expected. I really didn't want to see Dany and Jon rule together. That's the absolute last thing I wanted. And I like the friction they've had between each other this season. And there has to be some sort of way for Jon to turn on it, because Jon just isn't the kind of person that's going to just kill Dany. Okay, he's going to have a real reason. And it looks like this is enough for a real reason to do this. So I actually don't mind if this is true, except for the Bran bit. The Bran bit is just completely stupid. Now, none of these so-called leaks talk about Sansa getting killed, but they are talking about maybe Jon being arrested. So perhaps Sansa is the last person left. But again, maybe Bran is going to be running the whole thing, which is just a horrible idea. None of them talk about Arya, and I thought maybe Arya was on her way to try to kill Cersei. So that's one bit of suspicion I'll cast on this. Arya's had a pretty major role so far in this season. She just killed the Night King, and she's done a few other things. She's been quite prominent so far. She is heading down towards King's Landing right now, she would have to do something. It's strange that these leaks don't talk about Arya yet, so that might be a sign that they're 100% fake, and maybe these were real leaks for episode 4 before it was released, but then they've went and added in some extra stuff that isn't true. But a lot of people upset, a lot of people don't like the way that this is saying things turned out, and this is on the back of quite a lot of people being upset at episode 3, and episode 1, 2, and 4 haven't had a lot happening in it so far. So 1 and 2 had a lot of build-up for 3. 3 was very disappointing for a lot of people. Number 4's had a lot of build-up. So if this is what they're getting in episode 5 and 6, the internet may explode with rage. This may be one of the most hated things ever. This could be way beyond what we saw for Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.